Hi, I'm Jill from KiteCo. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as part of the Marathon Sewciety, we are sewing up the fundamental tote by Joleelee. It is a really versatile pattern and I love the shape. The link for the pattern is down below. So what have I done in mine? So with permission, of course, I have reduced it to 90%. Other thing I did is I added a zip into the top. Now this is done a little bit different. It is not into a seam, it's onto your flat lining pieces before you assemble them. And there's no raw edge on my zipper tape. So check out how I did those. If you like what you see, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And I will stop talking and get on with sewing here now. So this is everything I've got as it's ready to sew. I have done a little bit of prep work. I've got my handles, which I've put a little bit of interfacing and drawn a line down the middle. I've cut those at 2 inches and a strip at 3/4 of an inch because I'm going to put that on the back like a double strap. Now this is a really, really thin vinyl. Now I use it for all sorts of things because it's great as a trim. So if you can get a bit of fine vinyl, I suggest you do that because it's so useful. I've also got a piece that I'm going to, it's 1 inch, and I'm going to fold that over and put that as an edging around the top of the tote. So you shall see that as I go through. Then I've got my zipper overlay. So again, this fine vinyl, I've put that in behind my zipper overlay as an extra layer, so to be a double. And so I have got my 2 zipper linings as well. I've got my slip pocket, so I have made that slightly shorter as well. And I have got 3/4 inch trim to go along the top. I am adding a zip closure at the top, so I have got my pieces which are 2 inches wide and my zip for that. So I have reduced this to 90%, and as you can see, I have done all my quilting. Now if you'd like to see how I did my quilting, there was also a link to a video for that down below. And I have cut my zipper overlay out and tied all my ends of my back. And then we've just got our 2 lining. I am using water resistant canvas, so I haven't interfaced those. Now I'm going to change things a little bit. I couldn't get the strap connectors that I wanted in time, and because I've done all this quilting, I didn't want to cover it up here anyway. So I'm going to attach my straps into the top of the bag, and I think that'll look really cool because they're going to be a feature strap as well. So let's start with some prep work. Let's start with our straps. So we'll put everything else to one side. So I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape down the middle of my strap. Feels like I'm going to run out of this double-sided tape. Haven't got much left. Ooh, a little bit. Now bring that over to the line. Turn it over and do the same. And I'm going to put another piece down over the seam or over the join. Take one of our 3/4 inch strips and line it up over the middle. I find it better to go little bit by little bit and make sure it's definitely in the middle. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to sew down each side with a 6mm or 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'll just carry on and do the other one. So that's both our straps ready to sew. So we'll go sew down each edge of those at a 6mm or 1/4 inch. So that's our straps all done. So you can see it's nice and even, and that little thin webbing does not make a thick strap. So I think that's quite a cool, effective strap. We'll put those to one side and we shall prepare our pockets. I'll start with our slip pocket. Now I'm thinking of doing it that way and dividing it into 2 or I can leave it that way and have it long. Maybe I'll do it that way and divide it into two and put a rivet in the middle. So let's put those right sides together. And we're going to sew down each side of those. So now we want to just snip our corners and turn those through. Now don't put anything in sharp into your corners, but just put some pressure out to get your seam out. These are quite blunt. Your fingers in each side and give that a bit of a pull. I'm just going to baste along the top of this, like that. Now cut off any nasties. Get a piece of double-sided tape and put it down the middle. Then take our pocket, oops, and just lie it just shy of halfway. We want to fold it over so the edge meets like that. And sandwich the top of the pocket in the top. Like that. Now if one side's a little bit shorter than the other, that doesn't matter. See, that side is a bit shorter, so I'm going to sew from that side. So just sew down there into here. Don't come off the end because we're going to snip that. We're going to cut that off later. So start sewing on here and all the way down there. So there's our pocket. Let's get one of our linings. And I'm going to bring mine down quite a bit. I'm going to mark the middle so that I can like so. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to sew down there and along the back, and then I'm going to sew a line down the middle. Now make sure you back stitch well at the beginning and the end and in the middle so that you're not going to have your pocket coming undone. Again, down there, along and back, and then down there. Now you can come down, along, up, back and along, which is what I usually do. So now I'll sew down there, along, up my fold line, back, down and up there. So what I'm also going to do here is put some rivets along the end. I'm going to put one in the middle. Notice how I've put a 1/4 inch seam there. So I'm going to put a rivet in the middle and a rivet at each side. So that's our pocket. Got a bigger pocket and a small pocket, and we've riveted in the top. Now if you do put rivets in, make sure you don't split your stitching, because that would be a bit messy. Right. So now let's work on our zipper overlay. So we need our overlay, our zip, our two linings and our back. So let's put our zipper overlay on first. I'm just going to put some double-sided tape around the edge. Now obviously you don't need to. I see people glue them, I see people just hold them in place, just whatever works for you. I like to double-side mine. When I'm on a tutorial, it just makes it easier. So when you've already cut out the hole, have that upside down and center that in the hole like that so that you can see both sides of it. It's a little bit awkward when you've got a camera in the way and it looks like it's too much to one side. So it pays to turn it over and just do a double check. The top I've got 2 inches and I've got 2 inches at there. And 1 3/4. Okay, that's fine. So I'll leave that there for now. Oh, then you need to take the rest of the tape off. So we'll put that to one side. What we're going to do when we go to our machine, stitch around this outside edge of the rectangle. So on the brown, not on the black, just around the edge. But we're also going to take our tape, our zipper tape, and put that right side up with the edge of our fabric, like that. So I'm just going to go and baste along there. So I find this easier without your pull. I'm going to baste or stitch down that edge so the zip is facing up and it's wrong side to the right side of your pocket. I know it seems backwards, but that's what we're doing. Then we want to lift that up and put that right sides together on there as well. So it's like, make sure the pockets line up at the side, and we're going to sew along the top there as well. So that's us sewn around the top. Now as you can see, I've left long tails to pull through and to tie off. Now I like to put a piece of double-sided tape to hold those in like that. That's my back, it's all done, and our zip. So now we want to put our zipper tab on. I always melt the ends of my zipper to make that easier. So now we want to put that, make sure it's opening to, or closing to the right, or sorry, closing to the left and opening to the right, and we want to put it behind like that. So now we can put a piece of double-sided tape over the top of the stitching on our zip. Now as you can see, I've also stitched my zip down flat, so I did it and then folded them down and stitched along the top. It's just a lot easier to keep it. Now I've got double-sided tape on my zipper pull. So it's a lot easier to keep it flat like this, else you're fighting with the seam. Right, so we want to put it in so that it closes to the left. But I like to keep my zipper pull in the middle. So you can kind of feel and you can see where it is. You want to line it up across there like that and have your zip centered across there. Like that. Fold that back, put that up in there, else it's going to stick to your sticky tape again. It's been a while since I've done a tutorial at my table as opposed to at my machine. Let me know in the comments which you prefer, machine side or table. Put those out flat, like that. So now we're wanting to sew around the inside of that box as close as you can. I'd like to do mine about 2 mil, less than 1/4 inch. So we'll go do that. So that's all sewn around the inside like that. So what we can do now, turn it over, pull our pocket down. Now our pocket is going to be longer on one side than the other, so we want to trim along the bottom. Make sure it's pulled down flat. Now I'm going to leave the very bottom of my pocket open so that I can pull my lining up later and close it through. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open that up there, sew down there and along here just a little bit. And the same with this side, down there and along there a little bit. So I'm going to trim the edge of my zipper tape down. And that side's fine, but I shall still give it another melt. So that is our back all prepared. And the only thing I want to do to my front is to put my logo tag on. So I'm going to put in the middle of this one here. So in the middle of that. So you can line it up with the stitching. I'm going to put a bit of Decaville light behind that. So back and our front. So next I'm going to work on my zipper closure. My other stuff did not stick, so I'll give it a try. And you do need this adhered together. So what you want to do is put double-sided tape down the ends and just turn it over. We want it over by about 6 mil or 1/4 of an inch. So it looks like that's going to hold. Maybe it was the tape I was using. So I have cut this at 2 inches. So it depends on the width of your opening that you want as to how big. But 2 inches gives you a 1 inch when you've finished, because we're turning this under and in half. It looks like my interfacing's come off just to help. Right, so now I'm going to put double-sided tape again down the edge. And before I fold it over, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. So it's 2 inches, so we want a line at the 1 inch mark. So you want that line on the outside of that as well, like that. Let's see if this is going to hold it. So we want to fold those over like that. It's not helpful when your interfacing comes off. And now we'll just do the other one. So now we want to take our zip, pinch that like that, and turn it sideways. Now there's lots of different ways of doing this. So I'm just going to put a clip on the top like that, about that end. So again, so over so you can pinch a bit and fold it over. These clips are great for this because they actually sit over the top. And I'm just going to melt that like that. So the other thing I've started doing, that's all coming undone, which is great. Maybe I'll just clip them together until we're ready for them, to keep them together. So that's going to go in there like that. So what I'm going to do is make a mark, or put a pin in there like that. And a pin on the other side. Turn that over. Now I'm using 3mm double-sided tape. Now I've only just started doing this. I saw it on a bag in Melbourne, in a designer bag, and I really liked it. And it looks quite cool. So I'm going to just go down the ends like that. And that's the end of my double-sided tape. See if I've got another one. Yes, I do. Now this only works if it's 3mm or 1/8 of an inch. You don't want it any thicker than that. And I am going to be sewing through this, so if you can't sew through double-sided tape, maybe just hold it. So I'm just going to turn that over at that point, and it will just go like that. That's okay. And stick that down. So straight at the pin to the 3mm or to the 1/8 of an inch. And that pin was the length of your zipper overlay, remember? So that's like that. And that's coming about 6mm past that, and it's coming to just on the end. So now what we want to do is go to our machine and sew off the end here and along. So it's actually easier if you start at this end, and I sew from the right side. So I'm going to sew down the end and then just off. So down and just off at the ends. So I'll go and do that. So that's what you get. Now because the tension on my machine, it does curl it, but I actually quite like that because it keeps it either way. So I could straighten the tension, or I could just leave it like that. Oops, there's my pin. So I'm just going to snip across the very end of my zip, melt it, get a piece of vinyl, put some double-sided tape down the middle. I know, all this double-sided tape. So then just put that just shy of halfway on your piece of vinyl. And bring the end over like that. Now you should be able to see the indent of your zip. Now I'm just going to run my scissors right along the edge of my zip like that. And it should give you a nice straight line. Now the one I saw actually came out a little bit. Actually, that's a lot longer than we need, isn't it? Never mind. Could have cut that back there. So what we're going to do now is put that aside. Get our two linings. Mark our centres. Don't know where my other little scissors are. These are a bit overkill, aren't they? I've got everything set up by my machine these days for sewing rather than at my desk for tutorials. So now we'll put our little pieces for our zip on the front. So get our little ruler or some, now this is an area eraser marker. It's not going to be very easy to see, is it? I can just see it. It's my middle mark. That's my middle mark there. Okay, so we want that to be sitting, so what we want is 1 inch from that edge to our line. And we'll do the same on the other one. So it's on the right side with our zipper panel facing down. So line the middle up. And 1 inch to the line, like that. we want to sew from here, from the very edge on that line, along the line to the end. Now you can either back stitch really well, or you can turn around and come back and back stitch. I'm just going to back stitch here, sew along and back stitch there. And do the same on here, starting there, along the line and back stitch well on both. And on our little end, we want to start here, sew up there, across and back. So let's go do all those. So they are all sewn. We have got our little cap and we've got both of our zipper tabs. So now we'll put our zip in. So pressure those away and fold that back like that. So you can put a clip in there just to keep that back out the way. Now you want to make sure you're putting it in from the top. So this is the top. If you want your pocket on the back, you need to do it so that the zip is right side up and the tail going towards the right like that. So pocket right side up and the tail going to the right. If you're wanting your pocket on the front, you would do it to the left like that. So I want my pocket on the back. So I'm going to put it in there. So we're going to line up our end like that with about a good 1/4 inch of our zip sticking out. And just clip it in place. Now you can use double-sided tape. I find if you've put interfacing in here, it stays really nicely, and these clips just hold it in place. They sit over the top really well and hold it in place. So I'm putting the back, it's being sandwiched between the back and the front. So at this end, where we've done the stitching should just be coming out of the end of our zip. So at no stage should you see any raw zip. And then the other side. Do it from the top, because that's going to be the right side. Make sure there's not too much. You just want to be able to stitch up there. You don't want a whole lot of it coming out. Now if you're doing a bag that lining can't be closed up, or you don't have enough room, put your tab on last and just work on one side at a time if you're doing this zipper method. You just want to make sure that that's folded flat, because you want that definitely coming out. So what we're going to go and do, put a clip on each side of those to keep that out of the way. Start here, up, along and back to here. Back stitching well at each end, and the same with that. So that is our zip all installed. So that's it from the top, and obviously it's the same from inside. So while we've got our lining here, I'm going to put these right sides together. Tuck that in out of the way. Now I'm also going to leave a turning gap at the bottom, so that we can turn the bag through. So I'm going to sew to about there. I can put a line that I won't forget. So I'm going to start there and go down the bottom, back stitch, then I'm going to bring this up to here, back stitch and sew to the bottom and do the same here. Just join those ends up a little bit as we're sewing, and you'll see that when I'm finished and how that works. So when we sew like that, that's what we get. So now we just want to take those apart like that. So our seam is lined up there. Now I'm going to just nest my seams. I'm going to have one going one way and one going the other. And you can feel, make sure your seams line up. And put a clip on each edge. Now make sure if you're nesting that your bottom seam is going the same way. So it's going that way at the back and that way like it is on this other seam. Just feel that your seams lined up. And what we're going to do is sew across both of those corners, and that will be our lining all done. So that is our lining all done. And our zip in place. Like that. So we'll put that aside for now. And we want to get our exteriors. Now I'm not going to put my straps on yet because I've got something else I want to do. So I'm going to put these right sides together and clip along the bottom. So because we've got quilting, we want to make sure our seams line up where the quilting is. It looks like they're all going to. And we're going to stitch down there. Then I'm going to open that seam up and butterfly it so that both of the seams are going like that, and sew down either side of it at a 3mm or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So our butterflying is all done, so we basically opened up our seam and top stitched down either side of it. So now we want to put the rest of our bag right sides together, lining up our main bits on our quilting. Oh, that's going to be out a little bit. Never mind. Same with that side. Yep, that one's going to be off too. That's okay, we can cope. So we're going to stitch down each side at the allotted seam allowance. So then we're going to get our hand in our bag so that we can flatten out the corners and put the side seam in line with the centre of the bottom seam. So it's lining up there, like that. And just push that down flat so that you can feel the seams lining up. The same with this side, just push it in flat. Like that. So you can see where that seam lines up underneath. So you're wanting to line it up with your seam inside there, so then you know your corners are going to be perfectly lined up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stitch along at the allotted seam allowance. Then I'm going to stitch down there, and then I'm going to come in 1/8 of an inch and stitch another row just for reinforcing. So we'll do that on both ends. So we've stitched down there, and I've done my best to pressure out my seams. The more open your seams are, the better your bag is going to look at the end. Now I want to get our piece that I'm going to use around the top for, basically it's not really piping, it's just a trim around the top. So I'm just going to figure out how big I need that. Now you definitely don't want this to be loose. It's better off to be a little bit tight. So that seems to be right, and then I want a seam allowance as well. So if I clip it there, is it going to fit around the top? It might still be a little bit loose. So I'm going to sew down there, trim that up. Then I'm going to fold it in half, so it's wrong sides together, and just stitch right around the edge at 1/8 of an inch. So there's our trim. So what I'm going to do now is line up the middle with the back. Like that. And just clip it along the top. So as long as it's even folded in half and even along the top, when we stitch it, we should get an even piece peeking through the top. I should have folded it in half as well, shouldn't I? So I should go baste all around there. So that was our trim all around the edge. So of course that's going to look like that when it's done. Now we want to attach our straps. Now I want my straps so that the right side is like that. So I would have to put them right sides together where I want them. So I'm going to make a line. I want them about there and there. So I'm just going to measure what that is. So it's 3.5 from each end. Two and a half, sorry. And the same from this end. So we want that right sides together with that. So I'm going to put my strap in there, and I want it overhanging about 1 centimetre. So I'm going to put it on the inside, so lining up the inside with that, like that. Make sure there's no twists in my strap. I have done that before and it made me cry. Okay. Because I didn't find it till I had finished the bag. I was mortified. Okay, like that. And the same on the other side. So make sure it's got no kinks in it. And on the inside of our line, so I'm lining up that with the edge of my line. Now I am going to baste these in place, and then I will put my lining in. Okay, so I'm just going to baste across the end of my straps. Bring my clips back, I keep leaving them at the machine. So now it's time to put our lining in. So I'm going to leave the bag, I'm going to leave it inside out. Turn the lining inside out. Open up our zip so that we can get the top of it. So that's my back. So I want my pockets at the back. Right, so now we want to line up our ends. So which way did I put the seam? I always make sure I've got the seam lying the right way to match up the bottom so you don't have a seam twisting halfway up the bag. Just that way. nearly done. So now we're going to sew around there at the allotted seam allowance as well. This is the part I love. This is where we get to turn our bag through the bottom. So just push your corners in. Try and keep your tape on the outside. She's nearly there. Straps. Oh, I thought it was a nick in the vinyl. Right, get your hand down in the bag and push out your corners. Mind you, I'm going to push it inside out anyway because I want to stitch it from the other side. Oh, our lines kind of meet up. And then just work our way around with the trim being at the top. See, the reason I do the trim is this comes straight to the lining, which is fine, but I think it actually looks nice if it's got some differentiation between it. So I've started doing this with all of my totes now. Let's just check our zip. That's going to sit gorgeously. And it can go in there. So I really like that end, so it's not just a raw edge. Anyway, let's finish the bag before we spend so much time admiring it. So I'm going to turn that inside out because I want to stitch from the inside. But it always pays to check all your corners and things first. Okay, so now we should just make sure all of that is rolled nicely down. On both sides. This is where I put my long clips in. Now the end piece is going to be a little bit thick, so be careful sewing over there. And if you put your straps in, that is going to be a bit thick too. So I'll definitely, even though I'm on my industrial, will be using my hump jumper, or my piece of trusty webbing that I use as a hump jumper. So make sure it's sitting down nicely at the back as well as the top. Right, now we're going to go do the fun bit and top stitch around the inside. Don't forget to check your needle size is the right size, as you might get looping at the back on these thick pieces, and make sure you have a fresh bobbin. So I shall go do that now. So that's our top stitching all done. Our straps all in, and our zipper end with the turned, I'll give that an iron. So I think that looks cool. So it's actually got a finished edge on the zip, it's not just a raw edge. So now we want to close up our bag. So put our hand inside our zipper pocket because we left our pocket open. Grab the main lining and we want to sew along the bottom. Like that. So we shall sew along there. Then we shall come and sew our zipper pocket up. So then we just want to push that back inside our pocket. And push our lining out. Then we want to pull the lining of the pocket out. I like using cotton for these because when you go like that, it all just goes inside. The waterproof canvas doesn't quite do that for the water resistant canvas. So now we're just going to stitch along there, and we're pretty much done. So now we just want to put our pocket back inside. Push everything down nice and flat. It is a great pattern. I love that. That is absolutely awesome. It is very versatile to change up to be lots of different looks. So I've put the zipper overlay in it and changed up the pocket. I like the way that turning the edge of the zip over gives that a finished look. I like that. And that's our quilted fundamental tote at 90%.